Go.
All right, everybody, welcome to Spiritual Gangsters from the Future, Part 5. If you're not assuming the power stance, or if you're just listening to this on audio, both Jonathan and I have our arms spread wide, the symbol for spiritual freedom, liberation, and protection. And I invite you to join us as we amp up the energy for today's episode. Master Mozenter here, tuning in from Los Angeles, California. I'm over here in Northeast Ohio. There's snow on the ground, and today we're going to be talking about sacred world, creating sacred world, living from sacred world to see that reflected in our realities, our psychedelic adventures, and all the good things to create peace inside, but also in our lives. So, with that invitation to bring the hands up and together and down. Om Namah Shivaya, Alleluia. Thank you, Jonathan, once again. I'm excited to dive into whatever this mystery is that we get into today. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time. I hope at very least that today's episode will be valuable, and if not valuable, entertaining. And is there really even a difference between the two? So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Master Mozenter.
Yeah, episode number 5. Happy holidays, everybody. It's January 4th here in Los Angeles. It's raining here. I'm excited to be here. Sacred world, sacred world, sacred world. What an important topic. In Buddhism, that's a big deal. As my teacher, Daniel P. Brown, always used to say, the Buddha fields, the sacred world. You're not going somewhere else. They're right here. It's right here. It's really a perspective shift. It's an energy shift, at least from my perspective. And I look to hear your point of view on it. And when I study with my teacher, Donnie Epstein, he has this thing called the triad of change, which is your personal formula for like flow states. And it doesn't matter. Everyone's formula is slightly different with some different variables. That's a whole other story. But everyone includes positive perception witnessing, that life is here to serve you. Because if you're making life wrong or bad, you're in a victim mindset, it drops your energy and you're just not high functioning. So if you see the world as beautiful outside of yourself, then you're going to have a lot of energy to deal with it. You're going to be resourced. It's an energy thing. So there's a lot of ways to look at this, and we'll go back and forth on it. But I want to get to some part of it's like a practical thing. Also, I just want to get into one more thing about very Buddhist mirror. They say mirror-like awareness, and this even goes back to the Bible. Let there be light. Let there be light. Let there be light. God is looking at the mirror at a light. It's a mirror. Whatever you mirror out from is going to mirror back to you. So if you're loving your life, if it's a sacred, beautiful world, that's what you get back. If you know you're making the life wrong, then that's what you're going to get back too. But be mindful. What does sacred world mean to you, Christopher?
Yeah, the thing that's coming up as I'm hearing you, and this is just in my experience with these practices, it might be different for you, but I feel like whether it's meditation or mantra ceremony or parts work, even any practical, I think I heard you say the word practical, all of the systems I feel like are encouraging me to be not only okay, but just to see the perfectness of this sacred world now. So it's really interesting, I find, when, let's just say in my life, there's a number of things that I want to be better or more improved, but if it's coming from a place deep inside that is I'm really just reacting towards an intolerability of, nope, this is not okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever the practical practice is, and I don't think that there's a more practical practice than getting to be able to see, holy shit, this is it. Like you were saying, like this moment right now, Christ is here, Buddha is here. or whatever it is, and just seeing through all the mental distractions and distortions that are between me and that light. Like I mentioned the Bible, the light. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, I am the light. And so, yeah, like I can't tell you how many times I've sat down on my meditation cushion or any kind of practice, and I'm faced with this paradox of, fuck, I'm trying to get somewhere other than right here because there's some part of me that is resisting or doesn't want to accept that this could. I'll leave it at this. I was talking about this last night after a fire ceremony with a brother that was with us in Costa Rica. He came up here to Cleveland. And from one perspective, if I were to say to you or anyone, there's no getting out of this and it doesn't end, that could be the most terrifying, horrible thing if the one hearing that is in suffering, trauma, whatever it is. Yet from another perspective, there's no getting out of this and it's never going to end, can be the most liberating truth. Oh, great. There's no goal to achieve or enlightenment that's outside of this moment. Yet it's so subtle because if there is, again, a piece of fragmentation, a part that feels, hell no. You mean hell is forever? It's depending on what level one is relating to that at, it could appear that way for sure. So I'll leave it there. That's what was coming up as I was
Yeah,
getting it
yeah,
over.
great, great. I think what you're talking about is profound and practical, and it gets into perspective lenses. Frequent. Some people call it like frequencies, but let's ground frequencies. Frequency can be an abstract word. Some people use that a lot in the new age music, and a lot of people are like, "What the hell does that mean?" But let's get it down to something practical. So, for example, and Donnie Epstein's got these things called like the six intelligences. And if you're one of the intelligences, like a survivor thing, if you're just trying to survive, this also relates to parts work. We have parts of us that are just like trying to keep us alive, just trying to keep us things. Those people are like scared, they're like vigilant. That's not the most fun place to be. If you're operating from that perspective, life's not as fun. You might not want to live forever. There's another part that Donnie would call the lower mental, or a lot of people call it the judge, right? So the judge is like, boom, that's good, that's bad, that's right or wrong. And so some part of us might be judging life ourselves, but these are lenses that we all have. We all have them. It's how we use them constructively, though. Or the critic. There's another lens that Diane would call the upper mental, which is the optimizer. It has a lot of perspective. It's always trying to optimize things, which is good. Perspectives are good. We do need to make judgments or decisions or boundaries. So all these things are bad, and we do need to survive. So all these perspective lenses or frequencies are useful, but are we living? We don't want to live from them. We want to be more conscious of them. Like, for example, the optimizer, this guy has a lot of possibilities. He's good at finding what's wrong with something so he can make it better. He's trying to optimize it. But that means
Mhm.
he's always criticizing. He's finding what's wrong with things. That can be like stabbing ourselves in the back. um, yeah. So I mean, I know we were going to talk about some psychedelic experiences. So I actually had some psychedelic experience. I'll talk about the one I got two with the optimizer because yeah, I have a really strong upper, and I want to circle back to how do you see it beautiful and sacred again. But let's talk about,
Yeah.
I have a long history of like really having a strong like analytical mind. And that got me so far. My personal philosophy used to be, how can I calculate the best percent chance I'm going to succeed? Not the worst
Mhm.
philosophy in the world, but it wasn't getting me everything I wanted. And I had an ayahuasca journey. When I was doing ayahuasca, at some point during the journey, the my intuition is like, when you're on, for those who haven't done ayahuasca, at least for me in my experience, it really gets my intuitive sense. My higher self really connects to it deeper. And it was like, it basically said, Jonathan, put your hand on your back. You know how when you go to get these massages, your massage therapist is always saying there's like certain spots that are tight, like super tight. And is imagine yourself stabbing yourself in a knife in your spot. That spot represents that you're just a total asshole to yourself. Your critic is a dick. He's always looking for what's wrong with things, but not only in the world, but with yourself. And you're just criticizing yourself like all the time. And you're stabbing yourself in your back. And as you're doing harm to yourself, you're doing harm to your health, you're doing harm to your relationships.
Mhm.
And it's because you're very critical. So it's the opposite of sacred world. So I had another psychedelic journey where it was like a correction lens to it. This is a two-parter. I did a 5-MeO DMT experience like on a Friday night. And I remember like I was on the medicine and I stayed in the room. So it was like and not like a formless experience where you go to a white space or something like that. I've had those experiences. So this was like a one. And I remember the medicine was like, I know the medicine, I was like asking, Jonathan, are you whole? And like my body was like, I'm not whole. You're not whole, Jonathan. And I was like shaking my head back and forth. So that became the question for the next day. Part two, I did a heroic dose of mushrooms. And on the mushrooms, and plus it's amplified because I did 5-MeO the day before. This is where we're getting into the sacred world thing. So I just want to tie this all together. So what happened was like it was one of those one journeys that was really powerful where like medicine came on strong and it felt like a new part of me was like coming on board. It was like trying to figure out why am I not whole? And as soon as I started to open my mouth, a new part would come was like, stop, Jonathan, wait a second before you go to that thought. How can we appreciate what's going on right now? How can you just appreciate it right now before you get into what you're about to do, this old habit of yours of like finding what's wrong with it first? Gratitude, gratitude, appreciation, what's beautiful. Like right now, what a beautiful thing. I'm in a beautiful city. I'm with an amazing friend, my partner, my co-host partner. We're having an epic talk about things we're passionate about, where we have enlightened intentions of spreading wisdom and helping other souls. Like sacred world, man, we're so fortunate. Gratitude to get it out there. These medicines and these journeys can help us have direct experiences to show us the lenses, the perspectives that we're using that are preventing us from seeing the sacred world that's always right here and help us shift up our vibration, our frequency, or our higher lenses and help. I think that these experiences can help us find parts of us that we are suppressed. Our higher parts get in touch, and then afterwards you got to work on stabilizing it, but it can really open things up. And yeah, I was wondering if you had psychedelic experiences that helped you get in touch with sacred world,
Yeah,
or
yeah. And first, I'll touch on the gratitude piece because
yeah.
that is, it might be worthless to try and actually give words to the mechanisms, but I'll do unspeakable bliss anyway, but I'll do my best.
Hmm.
I feel like the gratitude piece that you just mentioned, when I have been in, whether it's just my day-to-day life or an intense psychedelic medicine experience, um, when I have ultimately surrendered and felt gratitude for what is, it's almost like it's magical, man. It's alchemy because in my experience, it's getting to that point where I start to feel gratitude, not to make the thing go away, but I'm just actually seeing, experiencing how what otherwise could be an eternal hell realm or a chaotic world, when I can feel gratitude for the how perfect it is, it's ironic because then it shifts, but I feel like the shift actually comes from not trying to get away from whatever those circumstances are and everything to do with, wow, this is all a setup of God leaning in all of his clever disguises, being like, are you going to remember yet? Or are you just going to keep on forgetting? And then it's like a release, because there's no longer this, get me out of here, I can't do this. And there's just, oh, wow. And then a power restoration as well. I feel like the power of choice comes back online of, oh yeah, I can actually choose to not be, it comes back to Viktor Frankl stuff, right? I forget the exact quote, but I ascribe to the belief in every experience that I've had, and I believe this to be true for all beings, from my experience of what other beings, souls, people are, is that no matter what one is facing, no matter what, and it's easy for me to say when I'm sitting here and circumstances are good, but I've had a number of very challenging, like dark, deep, heavy, no way out things. And always I'm able to come back to that sacred world and find that gratitude. And then in finding that gratitude, I'm thinking of the Wayne Dyer quote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yep.
And it's ironic, right? Because there might be someone listening to this that's just like, all right, so here's the shitty thing, and I just have to feel gratitude for it. And it's like, subtle mask of, let me do this so I get that. And so that's why surrender is such an important part of it. Forget the script of trying to dig yourself out of a hole by just digging it deeper, and just sit there and look at the shovel, look at the hole. And then again, the mind wants to come in and be like, oh, okay, so if I do, that's going to get me out of it. That's at least not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a profound, like the existential kink mindset, where it's like really recognizing that one's stub or unconscious. To me, there really is just the unconscious. Ultimately, it's just conscious. But when we don't know how we got down in that hole, if you can bring the unconscious material to recognize that you did do this, you wanted this, to remember your power, to realize that you're not actually down in some hole alone, or you are alone, but you're all one with all beings. So yeah, that's just really me touching on the gratitude piece. But you may have heard me talk about it before, Jonathan. When I had my first heroic dose of mushrooms, some like almost 8 years ago, alone, and I do feel called to say, I'm not suggesting anyone do this, but I'm not suggesting anyone do this. I'm simply talking about my own experience with the sacred medicine. I thought I had lost my mind, and I thought I was never coming back. I thought that the story of Christopher, not that I was like well known enough, but it'd be like, man takes lots of mushrooms and ends up in psych hospital for the rest of his life. This was and for hours, and because you've been in transpersonal spaces like this, I'm sure some other people do as well. I wasn't really even inside of time. So this hell realm that I created of, I'm like, I want my problems, I want my ego. I'm like slapping my face, come back, please. But after 2 or 3 hours of freaking out for my own non-existence, I asked myself, I said, wait a minute. If I don't exist, then who or what is so worried about it? And in that moment, that's when the whole thing flipped. And it turned into like just years of gratitude and joy, and to the point where it's like right now, as far as I can see, the same thing is sitting with itself by itself, attempting to talk about its own nature. It says, what am I going to actually even say, when there's just this innate inborn, I was freaking out about something that never had any real existence to begin with. So when I realized I can't do this, it was so beyond. It was like the reason why the I that wants to do this can't do it is because it was never actually there. And I saw that it was just this placebo effect of my own mind that it created this story of, yeah, the truth is in the mushroom, wink, wink, when really it's the big nothing. It's like it did happen and it didn't happen. And then
So was it just
what
during the journey you worked it out? Was there any technique or anything you just pulled through it, or is there
well,
anything else?
we could say I worked it out by just being with that existential crisis, like,
Nice.
but
Staying with the
but
question, right?
but no, bro, it was like after 2 or 3 hours, and when the question dawned on me, if I don't exist, then who or what is worried about it? And this was not like I
Mm,
intentionally did it, but what is that's a practice of
right.
self-inquiry. I engaged in self-inquiry, and I had this I thought, and I was like, oh, I was just buying into a story that never even had any the ego, I'll call it the ego in this way, was freaking out about its own non-existence, but it doesn't exist to begin with.
Yeah.
And I just cried, man. I cried and I laughed for
Oh,
hours, and it was just, and this was the strangest thing, but, and this is why I went to the mastering of the core teachings of the Buddha. It was not like, I mean, I had hundreds of hours of meditation even before this experience, but it really felt like I did not even have mushrooms. Like I felt totally sober after going through the ringer of this hell realm of the grip of what the ego does. Often, at least in my life, it presents itself and it's like, how do I get out of this? You're not in it to begin with, idiot. And then there's just love and peace and joy there. But that's how I knew it was like a kind of like a bona fide, let's call it awakening or spiritual experience, because it was very clear. It never went away. And it was clear to me that it was not actually induced by, I'm going to sound like an idiot when I try to say this, because I went on a journey and I got
mm,
to the top of the mountain. And then it's, would I realize what I realized if I didn't take the mountain to the top of the journey, went to the top of the mountain? Because when I get to the top of the mountain, it is very much like before enlightenment, mountains are mountains, rivers are rivers. At the moment of enlightenment, mountains are no longer mountains, rivers are no longer rivers. After enlightenment, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. Okay,
mm.
everything is the same, yet nothing is the same. And what? But it definitely, what it did beyond anything is it broke me free of some kind of savior complex of, oh, I know this and I have to share this. Who am I really sharing? Who am I really serving, other than, as far as I can tell, this one interconnected being? But it took on a whole new flavor of relaxation, and the job's already done and taken care of. And there's not some, what didn't get created in a solid way was, I know the truth and it's time to, like Alan Watts says, let me help you, the monkey said to the fish as he took him out of the water and placed him into the tree. Who am I helping, man? You know what I mean? It's like, how much help is that to that? So anyway, I'll pause there because that was a mouthful.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff there. I'm getting this to stimulate a lot of thoughts. It's not only you had a great experience of a lot of times psychedelics amplify things in our own mind so we can blow them up and see them. Not to put words in your mouth, I'm just saying this from my experiences. And then it brings higher energetics and gets us to a resolution point. And when we integrate that, the thing that that some point of our not is doing it, we have more energy to be with life as it is. And it just feels more sacred, feels more thing because we're not tied up in knots about that thing. So then that's an experience I have a lot with my own experiences. But I love what you said about, I think you had an important thing about like, about remembering. Yeah, and I just wanted to say because I've had that too, and this is just my own interpretation of that for me. That's like, how did I resolve that not for myself? What am I doing here? What is this? Which is, and I love how you personalize things and own things as yours. I think that's a really important attribute of someone who's spiritually advanced. Is we're just telling our stories. But for me, it's I have this experience. Oftentimes I think about what is existence, how did it start, why did God or whatever the creator is have things as they are, and in my own imagination, I have my own creation story. And it looks like this. I'll just do the very beginning for me. This is my own Big Bang. It's there's nothing, there's not existence. And then some part of me goes, I wonder what it would be like to exist. And boom, let there be light. It's- And so it's like a remembering, as you said, I asked for this. I think in my opinion, we're all that impulse. Like every
Mhm.
person is that impulse. That's my own personal story of non-duality. We're all this impulse to know what existence is. That there's a primordial question: is who am I? What am I? What is existence? And so everything's a gift from that perspective. Somehow a miracle of life happened. That was another thing I struggled a lot. Like, how can anything exist? Chicken and egg kind of thing. And some
Mhm.
part of me said, I don't know. I guess existence is default. So, but also, if nobody's really watching, it's just an impulse, then does anything really exist? Everything's always moving. Everything's a dream. I don't know. You could make an argument that non-existence and existence are the same thing. That kind of gets a little esoteric. But that appeases my part of my mind that likes to transcend all paradoxes. But for practical purposes, as an everyday human being in the relative world, I think I'm here to. This is my story. I'm here to experience existence and then optimize it. And this gets back to the point I think that we're saying about sacred world, which is that if you see it as sacred world, as a gift, there's more energy there, there's more excitement, and it feeds back on itself. So it's actually seeing sacred world is a key essential ingredient for have, to have an epic life, which is at the end of the day is what my life's about. I'll go to another psychedelic journey story. Let's just tie it in. I was doing iboga, and I was like, I have this experience where I was like pretending to be God, and I was counting the the numbers that don't repeat. I always forget the name. Like three, one, two, three, five, seven. Then and anyways, and eventually I got to a number, and the universe was like, or in the vision, it was like, this is what's called the sensitive number, Jonathan. It's like God's come into a number. What's the point of existence? But once you know it, is there a second point? And from my perspective, this is what I value, which is happy journeys for all souls. So
Mhm.
I had this vision. There was like some number way out there, way high up, guys like counting experiences or novelty or whatever. And he comes to one, yeah, I think I want to orient my all my stories around happy journeys for all souls. And and I think it starts by finding the perspective that sees the gift in anything. Because even things that are painful can teach us something about existence. You know what I mean? Like you have something that doesn't work out, like romantic relationships. Let's say you have a breakup, it's painful. You're like, sometimes those are hard, challenging for people to get over. You could look back. What did you learn from it? What was it teaching you? Not every relationship, in my opinion, is meant to go. There's some story in our culture that we're supposed to be with one person forever. Fine if that happens. Also, fine if it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Every relationship. I know I've had a lot of relationships, and each one served a purpose. Some of it was just like, okay, that's not what I'm looking for in a partner. You know what I mean? So,
Useful information. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Useful information. So finding that that little treasure. But you got to look for it. If your mind is, I'm going to find the treasure, and every moment, like if somebody dies, it's like, okay, we're teaching me about sadness, grief, tragedy. I'm here to be a human. Had another ayahuasca experience that said the lesson was like, Jonathan, feelings are God's children. So it's a gift to be alive and to know each of the feelings with different intensity levels. Anyways, the sacred world is important, and there's a lot of facets. I was wondering, I had a question for you. Do you have any experiences with clients or yourself where people were having a hard time seeing sacred world, but you were helped to elevate them up? And if medicine was a role in it, what was it? What was the integration like? What was the setup? Or feel free to riff anything else I said, but there's a question
Mhm.
I had for curiosity for you.
Yeah, I want to put a little pin in that question
Go
and
for it.
offer a little experience, a meditative experience to the listener and to us, because we're the listener too, as far as I can see. And it's all about this note of remembrance that you brought into the equation. I think it also will, in a way,
Oh,
answer
you started it. I'm giving you the credit. Go
that
ahead.
makes one of us. If
Go for it.
yeah, so your eyes can remain open or your eyes can be closed. If you're
Mm.
driving, definitely don't close your eyes, please. But if you're in a space where you can receive several minutes, up to 5 minutes of relaxation,
Mm.
feel free to close your eyes. And on this point that Jonathan spoke to, feel free to fill in the blank. I'll use the word Christ, but whatever that highest vision of peace, joy, love, expansion, freedom is, Christ is here. The Buddha is here. Perfected peace is here. Just internally expressing this and tuning into how that feels. What does the remembrance, not a remembering to convince yourself, but a felt, embodied sense of sacred world now? Just being curious, seeing what arises, feeling what arises. Again, welcoming all the thoughts, the problems, the joys, everything, every thought, every emotion, everything is welcome here. Being a passageway for the light of truth, love, beauty to move through. Not to escape from anything, but to create coherent, attuned nervous systems where you, I, we, the great we, swallows up anything that is not fundamentally relaxed and open. Maybe even listening more between the words than the words themselves. As a way of remembering, realizing, unveiling seeing that the veil itself is no other than the unveiled. Remembering that one cannot forget what is. And as we close out, just attuning to the thread of permanence that has gone through this entire, not just the past few minutes, but that which neither comes nor goes in every experience you have ever had. That which hears these words where seer, seen, and seeing are all one. That is what I am attempting to point to, as it is pointing to itself. Ding.
Beautiful. Meditation helped me remember the word I forgot. Prime numbers.
Numbers, there it is.
There we
Yeah,
go.
it's funny, right? When we like let go of, I think that's a really great example too. You asked the question about, yeah, absolutely do I work with people, including myself, where it's, oh, I forgot. And then there's then like a fixation on what was that word? What was I trying to remember? What was it? Maybe the best thing a lot of the times, I won't be reductionist about it, but a lot of the times is play with your dog. Like, sing a song, make someone else laugh. Or if you want to receive abundance in whatever way, go do something kind for somebody else. So often I feel like the fixing has everything to do with taking the attention, the grip of attention on the one thing and going and doing something completely different for the sake in and of itself. And then prime numbers. That's right. That's what that thing was. And I'll share one more example. There's I won't name names, but in the fellowship that we're a part of online, someone, he came over the other night and we had a fire ceremony, and this person just experienced such a level of profound presence and silence and joy that, like, it's hard to talk about it versus the experience of a lot of what you and I, of course, it's made up of the fabric of every word that I say. I imagine as such for you too. Yet at the same time, there's just like a part of it that's, I just find myself often being like, hey, this is what I see is true, and try it on for you. And if you see it as true and real for you, then great. And if it works, and if not, that's what it is. It's just like anytime I'm facing a problem or someone else is, it's just being that compassionate, loving parent in a way, and be like, hey, it's all right, bro. Try again, or put it down and go play in the snow or whatever it is. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Nice. I'm what's called a volunteerist. We could describe aligns with what my teacher Daniel Brown said, called pointing out the way, or at least this is how I experienced pointing out, where Dan would be like, yeah, I'm gonna point out instructions and see what other people got results out of it. Let's see what happens when you do it. So it's not like dogma. It's like, this is the truth. And it's all about investigation. That's what I like about Vajrayana Buddhism. It's not actually about, it's about, all the practices are about investigation, like investigating the now. Is it like that? Yeah, like for example, something they call like the sense of self. Classic practices, like a lot of people have stories about them, sense of self, that they're this thing happened to them, childhood. I had, for example, I won't get into the full details of it. I'll just say when I was the very short of visit, I remember being like pretty good at sports, and then I had like a sexual assault, and then I suppressed it, and I became like a space cadet. I was like spacing out a lot because I wasn't able to integrate it. I think I blacked the whole thing out, and then sports was hard. I remember literally like being up there to like swing off a tee, and my mind was so spacey. I would be like, I don't know, miss it, even though it was like the tee was right there. It was really embarrassing, and like, I'd be playing, especially if there wasn't a lot of like soccer or baseball. Like literally, my parents would be like, I'd be at second base, I'd be building like a sandcastle or something. They'd be like, Jonathan, pay attention to the ball. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm having fun with the sandcastle. But anyways, why do I bring that up about sense of self? I started getting picked last a lot in elementary school for sports, and I was a sports geek. Like I was reading the sports page all the time. I was collecting sports cards. I was watching sports all the time, NFL films, and it was like my thing. My dad was really into sports, and it really was soul crushing to be like one of the kids picked last on the team. But I don't think people wanted the space cadet kid to be their star player. Be on the team. It wasn't that useful. I wasn't paying attention. Like EDD, but EDD later turned out to me just like a defensive strategy because I had to integrate things. I was going off into my imagination and avoiding something, right? So like sense of self is then, so I have this story then being a loser, and Dan would be like, "Oh, really? You're a loser? Oh, is that in your body? What do you mean?" So you search for like loser in your body, in your mind, and you'd be like, yeah, I don't know, it's not there. It's, yeah, because your mind makes shit up about life. And this
Mhm.
is nonsense. And when all people, unless they're doing a lot of deep work, have stories deep in their unconscious that prevent them from seeing sacred world. Stories from their childhood, their trauma. Like that was one for me. And that story, which I had to do a lot of deep work to pull that back up because even that I can say it now, but I did a lot of work just to pull that one out. And it was worse than I'm a loser. It was like I'm a loser and I want to die. It took me a
Mhm.
long time for me to even discover it in my own being and then be able to say it out loud. Oh my God, like it was a big deal for me. Now I'm just like, whatever. This is part of my story. And also, it's good for people who do that work to share it because a lot of people have trouble talking about these things. So if other people know that they've come and moved through that and did better, this is what I mean about investigation. It's just a story. So in Vajrayana Buddhism, they help people distinguish with the real and the unreal through direct experience. The only thing that we know is permanent is the field, the space, the ether that holds your experience. Because when you go to sleep, there's like a screen. It's like where you watch your dreams, right? And the
Mhm.
screen holds your experience now, and there's a part of you that witnesses. Everything else is temporary. And then the
Mhm.
mind makes up stories about it. The mind constructs reality. So you can construct a reality to see sacred world, or you can create a reality that's got a bunch of sabotage programs. Now, the challenging thing about that is a lot of the sabotage programs are deep in the subconscious. And the work that Christopher and I do is help surface, help people more conscious. It's like Christopher had a great example when he was talking about his your psilocybin journey. It sounded like this is my interpretation of it from where I'm sitting, is that you surfaced some things that were challenging and then you dealt with it directly. You didn't let it go away. And then you resolved it and then things were brighter. Some signs that you're a Buddha include, like Dan said, there's three things, signs that you're getting more awake. Things look brighter, right? You feel more bliss in the body and you have more what's called non-conceptual stillness or more stillness. It's because you're resolving things. Because if they're not resolved, you're always thinking, how can I resolve this? If you're always thinking things, it's going to dull because you're spending so much energy in here and you don't have
Mhm.
enough energy to see the bright light that's out here and you can't feel the natural bliss. Those three qualities are the natural state. That's what they call it, the natural state. But because we're so busy dealing with trauma or maybe even a better word is unintegrated experience, it takes energy bandwidth. We can't experience the sacred world quite as easily. So if we use these medicines and these techniques, parts work, et cetera, then we can resolve these unintegrated experiences and see the magical sacred world. It's always right here.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, man. I find myself really curious how, if you want to go into it, so I'll reframe what I understood, and then you could let me know if I got something wrong,
sure.
or inaccurate. And so what I was hearing is you had a sexual abuse
Mhm.
happen, and then there started to be dissociation or spacing out during physical activity, like sports. And
Or all the
what
time. Yeah.
all often, right?
Yeah,
Other
often. Yeah. Unless I was really like hyper focused, it was like it really got my attention. Yeah.
So how did you like go in there and integrate that in a way that wasn't one overwhelming? Because I can imagine like part of the dissociation was had to do with, whoa, like I'm not going to touch that, put that off into unconscious or in a corner. And so yeah, I'm curious because the thing is, like, even in the psilocybin experience that I talked about, the big issue I think that a lot of people have, and I imagine it might have been there with this, is that there is stuff that is, for lack of a better word, fucked up, that even thinking about touching it, even thinking about approaching it, can cause more dysregulation, freeze, fight, flight, overwhelm. So I'm just very curious how you got to a point of integrating that unintegrated material in a way that was digestible, approachable, as much as your nervous system could handle, to get to the point where you're comfortable enough to talk about it on publicly like this.
A lot. It took a lot. Let's see. First off, I would say just learning to concentrate a little bit so I can have some critical distance between my observer and what I was thinking. I can start to see the content of my own thoughts. And I noticed that I was in a pattern to avoid feeling certain things. So I was noticing that and so that then that took a while. It took me like a good 5 years to get my concentration practice up enough that I could do really deep shadow work. And then in Vajrayana Buddhism, it introduced me to a technique called deity yoga, which is where the only way you can really do deity yoga, there's lots of ways to do it. You could, like the doonies that you guys do in Costa Rica are a form of deity yoga where you're chanting a deity's name. Deity
Mhm.
yoga can take a lot of different expressions. When I was doing ayahuasca, that's a longer story of exactly how it happened, but I'll just say that during that experience, it was said, you should work with Ganesha. What
Mhm.
did that mean? Which was like to pretend, put a mask on, not that I am Ganesha, but that Ganesha's merging with my field.
Mhm.
Guru, Guru Yugas. And, and, and Ganesha, he's good at removing obstacles. And then when I was doing Ganesha, he's like, Jonathan, you should work with Yeshua. I was like, Yeshua, I don't have a relationship with Yeshua. It was like, something like, I don't care. It's not about that. You'll see, you'll understand why. And I said, I want you to pretend, I mean, it's a very good thing, that you were him. And this is how I'm getting back into how I got into it. Because by pretending I was him, I pretended to do shadow work. I pretended that I was crucified. So something about me pretending to be crucified, I got really emotional. I started to like really get into it. It was like a method. I was doing method acting basically. I was like, I'm walking as him, like I'm thinking like how awful it would be to be like tell all your friends like heaven's right here, to have to die for people's sins. I think he did that because he was giving people permission to forgive themselves. And just because it seems like he was in love with Mary Magdalene, and he has to give that up. He's got to give up a relationship with her. He's got to die from his mom, it's from his friends. He's got to sit there for fucking hours. His body's dismantled, thinking. I just got really into it, like it was actually happening, and I started crying deeper and deeper, and that helped me, gave me permission. Something about that experience allowed me then to face my own traumas. I was like, well, if I could feel that deeply for that. So that was one thing. And there was that. And then the sexual assault thing happened. I mean, I had a mushroom journey where I remember there was something saying like, hey, something really terrible happened to you. And I remember my soul's like, it's not yours, Jonathan, it's not yours, it's not your fault. But something happened. And then the
You
spirit
had no
guided me.
memory of it. You didn't even
I
know
didn't
that.
have any memory of this
I see.
um
Okay.
until I did ISTA International School of Temple Arts. It's a good place to go if you got sexual assaults. I put it that way. It's something I'd never heard of. I don't want to get into the whole story how it happened. Let's just say
I've
it's
heard the
infamous.
opposite. I'll say. I've heard that it's also a potentially terrible place to go if you've had sexual assaults. But
It's very controversial.
yeah.
Look, everything's what you make of it. Let me qualify it. I've done ISTA twice. I did level 1 and level 2. It's not for everybody.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
got to have a spiritual calling for this play. It's, I just had a girlfriend who was playing with polyamory. I've always been monogamous, and she told me about it. And something my soul said, you should go. I think that was part of my reason that the universe hooked me up with this particular partner because first off, you're naked in it, like a lot of the time. And so it's mostly parts work, honestly. And but it's really good for sexual assault. They had an exercise where I'll go again to go there, but a girl, well, you're partnered with somebody in the course, and she's putting her hand on my butt, and that helped me remember the experience. And then
Hmm.
so when she did that, because you're not doing it for sexual pleasure, you're doing it for spiritual reasons. So as soon as she did that, like I got flooded with all these memories. It was life altering. You do a lot of weird stuff in ISTA. I think for the right person, it's epic. For the wrong person, the wrong time, it could be a traumatizing.
Hmm.
You got to be really open-minded, first off. And it's it does it's controversial. It's also all over the world and very popular. So
Yeah.
they coexist. It's also kind of like Landmark. I don't know if you ever done Landmark. I did Landmark too. Also polarizing. And and for different, completely different reasons. Like I
Hmm.
did Landmark's core classes, also had a huge breakthrough. And one of them, in their second class, they had something like called a core wound. They didn't call it that, or maybe they did call it that. But anyways, it helped me break down my own complex. It was like they said everyone wears a mask, and that mask is like covering up something nasty you made up about yourself. So yeah, I pretended I was invincible to mask that I didn't want to be vulnerable, and that I made up a story that I was a loser, which is a vulnerable thing. It's But all these little things, you asked me, how did I get there? There are a
Yeah.
lot of little things. It wasn't one thing. And to
Hmm.
unlock something like that, you're talking about a good decade, 10, 15 years of inner work. So I don't want a lot of people say it's easy or it's going to happen overnight. That being said, if someone like me or you who's actually been through all those steps, it will go faster with a guide because you've been through it. I know what the steps are. I know I do something called stacking, and I know the things. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen like overnight. It depends on where you are in your process. But I'm getting to summarize it. So what are the key things for feeling deep things? Giving yourself permission. Just you gotta like I had an ayahuasca journey, uh, where I went said, Mother, it was the first time I ever did ayahuasca. I've sat with ayahuasca like 14 nights in my life. And this is the first one. And the first one was like, Mother ayahuasca, I want to feel. And in the first cup, I drank it and I was getting some really bad stomach aches. And and then the ayahuasca was like, "You're feeling your fucking stomach ache. What do you mean you can't feel? Stop it." It's like, of course you can feel. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess this is a stupid story." So like, let's go with that story. That's unconscious. But then it was amazing. I saw like the pain was getting really intense, and then some part of my mind went, I was like, "Oh my God, my mind is getting so intense. I'm gonna go hide out of my mind because I can't be in my body," which is what's called a leaving pattern. It's a defense pattern. So it I was like, oh my God, I never saw myself do that. And I realized because of that ayahuasca journey, it like illuminated, it shined light onto what I was doing at an unconscious level. So I bring that up as an example because you have to get clear you have to make the unconscious conscious, right? So I'm doing a summary here. So then on the second cup, um, I'll give the short version of it, but it was raining outside, pouring, and it was a huge group it was like 50 people doing ayahuasca at once. It was a lot. Anyways, so I started hurling my bucket. I let the second cup overwhelm me, and people were like, it was making everyone else want to hurl. They're like, Jonathan, can you finish your puking outside? And I was like, outside. I'm like, so I like had got half of it out. I still was feeling queasy, and I opened the door to go outside, and it's pouring and pouring buckets. I don't know, but some part of my mind was like, Jonathan, you're going outside. It was like you're here to have a spiritual experience. This isn't about logic and rational. You're going fucking outside. I'm like, I am. I'm like, okay. So I went outside, and it was like lightning out and stuff, and I was like, I had to go like 100 yards, like a tiki torch and vomit. Anyways, I'll cut the story short. I went back inside. Eventually, I got courage. I started going outside. It was raining. I'm like, what do I? And I was in apartments. Do I really want to be out here and puke? It was like a long journey out there. I went to hide in a shed to get some shelter, and I cut myself. I started bleeding. Long story short, it was an ordeal to get out there, and I finally puked. But when I puked, I felt like, oh, my whole mind is reprogramming. And there's an important lesson in all of this, which was like I sent a message to my subconscious that I'm doing this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to manifest my higher self. I'm going to get through these defense patterns. I'm going to do it all. That's important. Underline that, score it, explanation point, because you want to manifest your higher self. You want to cut through, because Christopher's saying it's right. It's hard to get to these things because you have stories that you don't want to remember these things. You don't want to feel these things. You got to want it bad. You got to want it bad, and you got to make a commitment that you're going to do it. You're going to go all the way. And if you do that, the field will respond to you and it'll guide you to the experiences you need to have. And that was it's called a spiritual initiation to say like, all right, does this guy mean business or not? Is he going to do this or not? And so I sent like a message to my subconscious. I'm serious. I'm doing this, whatever it takes. I'm going to transcend my shadow parts so I can see the beauty that's always right here and manifest my dreams. Those are some of the key points. But yeah, how does that resonate with some of your understandings for yourself and your clients and on that topic?
Yeah, I'll highlight something that's been more prevalent recently, and to me, it has to do with a masculine energy. And it's
Mm.
this last piece that you were touching on, which is I had a experience with mushrooms. It was a heroic dose, and I want to just also nest this in. I don't maybe maybe once a year. I don't go to have a psychedelic experience. It can be hard because of the community that I live in, and I imagine as such for Jonathan, where it's like if there's people drinking ayahuasca every weekend or whatever it is, it's like, oh, spirit's telling me to go. And a lot of the times for me, it's not been spirit, it's been social pressure of wanting to feel included.
Mm.
And that's like highly available. So it has helped me sharpen the sword of discernment and intuition of when I'm really actually feeling called and I have something that I'm working with. I oftentimes have to get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm on my meditation practice, I'm getting coaching, and I don't know where to go from here. It is moments like that for me that I will go to the altar of the mushroom, for example. And I had one of these such moments probably 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit more, 6 years ago. And I was struggling with money and how to relate to money and how to share spiritual wisdom and make money in a good way from that. And I had a really clear prayer written, and the pinnacle of the moment, I'll just cut right to the chase with it, was up until that point, Jonathan, I always had a plan B. There was
Mm.
always, it was like, oh, hey, this is plan A, heart's desire. This is where it's at. On the way there, I was like, oh, I could always do that, or I'll go become a psychologist, or and there is this diverting of energy that was not
Mm.
all here. And I had a moment, which sounds very similar to this last piece that you touched on with your share of this firm commitment or devotion, even, um, where I realized I'm like, whoa, okay. Worst case scenario, I die and I'm on the street, and I go hungry and I starve and I don't have a home, but I die doing what I believe in, what I have most faith in. And when it was reframed in that way, it was the lightest thing ever. It was like, okay, at least I'm not going to be a sellout, and I'm going to give my entire life force energy to the thing that means the most to me, no matter what. And that's the energy that I feel is this masculine, penetrative energy of this is what's happening. Because the way I experience reality, and I believe it works this way for others too, is external reality is in a way like waiting for an irresolute, immovable pillar of this is what it is, and this is where I am heading, no matter what happens. No, even if I'm not compensated, or even I'm devoted to the truth for the sake of the truth as I see it and I experience it, and I'm giving myself to that no matter what. But it took before it was my worst fear. Before that journey, it was my worst fear was, oh no, I'm going to be a failure, or oh no, I'm worthless, versus, oh, I'm going to do this, and worst case is I die doing what I believe in and what I have faith in. And I was like, easy in a sense. And I'm like, perfect. I'd
Nice.
much rather have that reality than be feel like a fraud or feel like an imposter and do things that don't actually resonate with what I feel and know to be the deepest truth inside myself. I'm interested in sharing and expressing that, and only that. Everything else can fall away, and I'll see what happens. And I'll watch reality align around that devotion and around that commitment. And I feel that it absolutely can be confronting. It's like, just to give a microcosmic example of even our meeting today. So We're meeting at noon my time, 9 a.m. your time. We shook on it. We didn't literally physically shake on it, but we had a verbal agreement, and it's like, this is what is happening. What what did that take beyond us just being like, yeah, I'm going to honor my word and do this thing? And I feel like that is a masculine energy that in the world that I see is lacking in our world, which is like people that have the conviction to be like, this is what we're doing, period. And then it happens. And it's magic. And here we are, and we're doing this thing. And how or why are we doing it? We said we would, and now we're doing it. So, yeah, I just felt like that was really important. That last piece that you said, that commitment, that devotion to be like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna, to me, it also is not at odds with surrender. It's like, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can, and I'm gonna be fully surrendered to the framework, the practical way of how it happens, but leading in life with that intention, where in your case, I think it was geared towards specifically like bringing the unconscious to the conscious, which that's exactly what I'm talking about too. But it's that intention. And then it's also matched by the attention of what we're putting our attention on in realizing and manifesting that intention. So yeah, I'll pause there and see what's alive for you.
I think I'm glad you called it out as a masculine energetic. We're not talking about males and females here. We're talking
Correct.
about the masculine for clarity and direction.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's important because to feel whole, you have to feel your feeling. The goal is to remove these stories, these egoic defense patterns. As a kid, we get overwhelmed by the feminine, the because our masculine is not strong enough. When I say the feminine, I mean these intense emotions. Can't be at self-hatred with 7 and higher or shame at 6 and higher. I'm just making up numbers, but you know what I'm saying? Like more intense negative emotions. Failure was a big one you mentioned. And by the way, Gene Keys, just too quickly, is a good one, or Human Design are good ones to help you figure out which ones you are, or personality patterns like the Enneagram or 5 personality patterns. But I don't want to digress too deeply because I remember you said failure. Remember, I said loser was my thing. Not a coincidence. In my Gene Keys, I think my celebration leads to detachment is my number one, or life's work, and it's expectation, which is about trying to achieve something. And I didn't feel like I got to what I wanted. Like I wasn't doing
Mhm.
well in the sports. So it's all connected. Those are shortcuts. So yeah. So shortcuts. I think Christopher and I, because we've combined so many different things. But I want to get back to masculine because this is another shortcut. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you have to actually, the goal is to get your masculine and your feminine parts, raise both of them. That's the goal. However, masculine leads. You need to have a strong masculine to hold higher feminine. So, because you have to have a stronger body because the masculine is about holding the space, right? So if you want to be with a new and feminine intensity level, then you got to have a masculine that's, yes, I can be with that. It can't crack. Yeah, it's got to hold space. It's got to be indestructible. It's got to be like, I can be with that. I can be with those. So they go together.
Mhm.
The goal is in my opinion, the goal is masculine and feminine energetics in magical collaboration. They're dancing and they're making love, right? In Buddhism, it's like the picture of the big Buddha and the woman's like riding, she's riding him. You know what I mean? That's the dance of the man. And it's not a symbol. It's a symbol for the sex is about the energetics of the witness, and the masculine in both men and women is like this witness and this field, and then it's can it be with the contents without moving away. It's just like you were talking about in your first journey about being present with the content. right? So that's the goal, is to be present with the content, including the one that you couldn't digest, the ones you can't digest as children, because they're still, you're running all kind of, it's almost like virus software. He's running in the back of your mind. It's sucking you the life out of your energy, so you can't be that present. That's why life isn't, it's harder to see sacred world when you haven't integrated your your traumatic experiences. So you're spot on, brother. It's about masculine. It's a superpower, but it's in Buddhism, they call it the knowing. If you're and Christianity, I think they call it the gnosis, right? The same thing. Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is the state of mind. In my opinion, Jesus, Yeshua was saying that he was an embodiment of somebody who had achieved Christ consciousness, and it got co-opted or changed to he's God. I think he was just saying, no, we're all just God. That's my opinion. I don't know. Some mean or rhetoric, but that's what I think he was saying. But yeah, the masculine is important. You want you one of the things that makes it feel more like sacred world is you just know, especially in these times when there's so many choices. Oh my God, it's like 9,000 YouTube channels, a zillion stations, a zillion different people to there's like so much information. It's like whoosh, you're like drowning 10, 500 AIs. Oh my God, it's too many choices. It's a good thing to be able to have to be in touch with your knowing, to have your intuition. It drops doubt down. It drops anxiety down. And that's one of the things I teach people is how to get people in touch with their own knowing and gnosis. It really sharpens their techniques. It has to do with getting your energy up, and it also has to do with feeling your feelings, because gnosis comes through feeling your feelings deeper. So the more you can be with intensity, the clearer you are. You also get more visions. And a lot of times the things like I could look at like that, because that childhood trauma, and there were a couple of them that really messed me up. One of the reasons I even got into spiritual practice because I wasn't doing well with romantic relationships. I was getting a crazy amount of dates were easy. I could get lots of dates, but I wasn't manifesting the long-term relationship, even though I think I'm a great catch. But I wasn't even, why not? Because in hindsight, I'm going to give three reasons. And there's an example of intuitions. I don't even know what they are yet. They're just going to come to me. But again, the first one is I wasn't intimate with myself. I had hid deep parts of me that were hidden in my unconscious I didn't even know about. Right? Yeah, because I was sexually assaulted by a man. The man put like weird sexual assaults on a 6-year-old boy, like confusing. Like some part of me was like, maybe am I gay or something? Like, why is this happening to me? But I never had a sexual good desire to be with a man, but because that happened at 6, I think my soul was just like, you don't want to think about that when you're 6, Jonathan. Like, you'll deal with that when you're older. You know what I mean? Just put it away. So one, how am I going to have the kind of deep love I want to have with a woman if I can't even be deeply intimate with my own mind? So that's number one. I was picking women that wasn't gonna go anywhere. This is sabotaging. It's unconscious. I had no idea. Two, let's just recognize it's my hero's journey. That I'm here to talk about this. I'm here to help people get Christ consciousness or achieve Buddhahood. If I would have been a regular person, I probably would have gotten married and had kids in my 20s, and I wouldn't be this guy now. And I like this guy now. And the third one is one that's can only be seen in hindsight, but I actually think it's a blessing in a way because we're headed towards interesting times with all these different technologies coming, the AI, the robots. I think self-actualization, this kind of deep work, we're going to have more time because the robots are going to be doing all these jobs that we don't want to do. And what are we going to do with ourselves? I think we're going to be finding passion projects. I think we're going to getting into a new kind of era, information thing. So now I'm great at that. So I'm set up to help the world because of my own traumas instead of making it wrong and being pissed that I didn't, because being in love is really important to me and having kids. And I'm 54, it hasn't happened to me yet. So I could be bitter and anger, but now I see it's a gift. I'm also like getting younger. I'm learning That's another good thing. If you do spiritual work, do some kind of shadow work, you get younger because it's an energy thing. I have more energy, way more energy now than any point in my life. I have way more than I was eight. I have so much energy now. Things I can do are great. I don't want to, I can get a lot more done. I was like up all the time. I didn't even sleep last night. I have crazy energy right now. It's like I can turn it on and off. I'm an energy wizard, and I can teach it to other people. That none of that would have happened if I didn't have that trauma. So this is getting back to sacred world. Like when you go back and look at it with higher energetics and the psychedelics can help you, you can start to see things from a different perspective, integrate it, and see how make it work for you now and really go forward. And I think that's available to anybody, but they gotta want it. Just getting back to you, they gotta have the masculine clarity. They gotta be determined to do it. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not always a one thing. You gotta need new practices, you gotta commit, you gotta go from the certain life you have and be with uncertainty.
Mm. Yeah, man, I think that was a beautiful exposition of how no bad parts, right? There was
Yes.
this 6-year-old who dissociated and was like, nope, not dealing with that now, because that's actually the appropriate response. It's like a 6-year-old doesn't have the capacity to digest, integrate, be with that. And so it's like that protector that removed that from your awareness did the what it was supposed to do as a defense mechanism. And then your journey, as you were saying, had that not happened, had you not been sexually assaulted and sexually traumatized,
Hmm.
you might not be on this life path doing the things that you're doing in the ways that you are. And it's like that to me is an example of, by the grace of a greater power than any of us individually, but also your own, you being a part of that power led you to a point where you now integrated that previously unintegrated material. And without that happening, you might not be in the position to be of service and love and alchemy and dedicating your life to human flourishing. So I feel like that was just like a very perfect full circle demonstration of how something that maybe led to your deep core wounding of being a loser actually was the path of illumination to realize Christ
Yeah.
in all beings. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just weird how it all happens because I made up a defense pattern that I was indestructible to mask being vulnerable, and now I got into this Vajrayana Buddhism, like that kind of double Vajra up here, this
Mhm.
cross thing. It symbolized what it means many things, but one of the things it means is the indestructible essence. It's about recognizing that we're consciousness. If you just like, let's do a short meditation on this just so I can show people. Imagine a lot of people think their true face is like their human body. Like this is my face, right? My nose, my eyes. But now everyone has a same subtle face. An exercise to do that is to imagine like we take in information, right? Or through our five senses, our imagination. It all goes into this thing we call consciousness, which is this lucid field of awareness that creates the picture that we see right now, right? And so that lucid clear field, it's like a canvas of life. Sometimes we call it space or ether, but it's who we really are. It never changes. If you're sleeping, you're dreaming, it's on that same canvas, the consciousness canvas. And that's what they mean when they say a face of a Buddha, or that's an important aspect of it. So that's the part of you that's indestructible. That's when you go to the bardo, let's say, maybe it's just black or whatever. I don't know, that's why people who learn to be conscious, they integrate all their shadow stuff and they identify as this lucid, clear field of awareness. They can stay conscious like when you sleep. I can go, I can't do it every night, but I've had experiences where I was like snoring or whatever. Like my body was clearly asleep, but my mind was wide awake. I was like, my mind is weird. I'm clearly sleeping, but I'm aware of everything that's going on. And anyone can do that with practice. And some people, like I've only done it like once in a while if I really concentrate on it. But as you get more advanced, you can do it all the time. You can also be lucid during your dreams. You can take control of the dreams, and you can do all kinds of things in your dream world. And you can like build skills at night. I know people say that they meet friends at night. Now these are very advanced practices, but I'm also a sneak preview. It's called Dream Yoga. This people who are worried that we're not going to have anything to do when we're not polarized and don't have jobs. Trust me, there's plenty to do. If you open up your mind, there's a lot of cool stuff to do in the world. Creativity really is unlimited. I call myself Mr. Infinity because there's a lot of infinite things. It was like when that my teacher Daniel P. Brown pointed to that field of awareness. All he had to say is like, "Hey, Jonathan, you ever think of yourself? What if you thought of your true face as this field of awareness instead of that story that you were telling yourself?" I'm like, "Oh shit! If I'm this clean, lucid field of awareness, I could be anything." Like in that moment, I was like, "Oh shit, I'm God." Not just like me only, but we're all God. That was my, oh my God, I'm God moment. Like, I'm like, oh fuck, I hid myself in front of myself. Oh, I never would have thought to look there. Thank God for this class. It was,
Hidden in
that
plain sight.
hidden in plain sight. That's the way it is. It's fucking I think the deeper metaphysics of life are so fascinating and they're so perfect. I feel like God's perfection keeps unfolding itself to itself all by itself in the most beautiful way. And I think that's probably, I'm gonna study it, but I love to teach that and to geek out on that. And I think I'd love to see once we get past trying to look good in front of everyone, we get more authentic. I think that's part of the mission is to know ourselves. I could see that getting popular. I would love to be part of co-creating a culture where we're having like deeper chats about the world, not just up in the mountain in Chiripo and a few other kind of places, but it's like more out there. And I think there's some shifts in the culture. Alcohol's use is going down with younger people. Hookup culture is going down. I think there's a shift. There's an opportunity for us to deepen as a species. And I think that's part of seeing the sacred world. And just to be clear, I don't even think hookup world and alcohol is ugly. I think it's just a phase of development. I think we're just outgrowing it. So I think as you get more evolved, you stop hating on parts of you that you've let go. And you're just like, we got to run those experiments. We got to experience it first to know whether it's awesome or not.
Yeah, bro. I was wondering, do you want to lead us through that meditation and then we can close out with that for today?
Okay, sure.
Sound like a good place to leave it?
Yeah, let's see. Let's everyone close their eyes. I want everyone to notice like the full experience. First, find the part of you that's just hearing my voice. Let's distinguish this part as something called like the witness or the observer. It's just a part of you that's watching. It's separated from its context. So like maybe you're seeing black. Witness separate from black. Black is a color. What's called a color. It's with language, we call it a color. Different from Jonathan's voice. Different. It's a part. Then I want you to find the canvas, the field that's holding the black. So it's invisible. It's like imagine black is on something, and it's this field, this what we call this lucid, clear field of awareness that holds my voice, the black, maybe like I'm seeing little shades of white, just holding it. And this field is your true face of a Buddha. And the witness and the field are all permanent. They're permanent structures of consciousness, and it doesn't matter if you're sleeping or awake, they're always right here. In Buddhist world, if you die, you still have those. the parts that are impermanent, like the colors and my voice, they're always changing. Those are called like lively awareness or the feminine aspects. Like when he did in a future episode, Vishnu is the field of awareness, Shiva is the observer, and Brahman is the lively awareness. So it's the same translations in that tradition, just different words. So everyone open up your eyes and find now your visual feels like wide open. Like I'm looking at my laptop, seeing Christopher, I'm seeing my Mr. Infinity brand guy, light, etc. But that's all changed. So the lively awareness has changed a lot, the visual field particularly. But the lucid cleared field that's holding everything and my witness still the same. That's your face. That's your true identity. That's ground. That's what we call grounding. And when you identify as that, and one easy way to really start to remember it is to pick a word that helps you remember, particularly the canvas. So some people call it the field or the field of awareness, ether, space, consciousness. I'm getting, for the sake of simplicity, my intuition says the space. So one way to really remember is that to change your identity is I am the space. I am the space. So that's called decree. So people can say I am the space over and over again and help shift your identity off your old stories and into this thing. It takes a while to get it into every phase of your nervous system, but it's a process. It's an unfolding. But it's really important actually, because if you're identified with these, like for example, my loser defense patterns, right? They're fused to my field. And one way to get to actually get on the other side of that is to change your identity that's something that's bigger than that. So it can reveal it. It helps by being the space, it allows unconscious material to surface a lot easier, honestly. It's one of the tricks of the trade. I recommend people check that out. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about me, my website is my last name, Mozenter, www.mozenter, Mozenter. My YouTube channel is at Mozenter. I got all kinds of videos and I got all kinds of free stuff on my website. Give me an email if you're interested in working with me one-on-one. I'm going to be offering a class later in 2026 about how to make the most of how to get quantum leaps from your altered state experiences. Christopher, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where they can learn more about you?
Yeah, we'll have everything linked up under the episode. We have the fellowship, men's community
Oh, yeah.
online and in person. Jonathan's part of that. I'm part of that. So I'll link that up as well. If you feel called to go deep and do some work, you'll be able to reach out to me. Two, we have a men's retreat coming up as well, few months into New Year's in Costa Rica with myself and Anchor and maybe even one other guest facilitator. So yeah, that'll all be linked up, and Jonathan and I are going to continue to do what we're doing. And we invite you to
Absolutely.
join us.
Yeah, so I want to say, I know Anchor, he's top notch. He's high quality. So I'm sure it'll be a great retreat. In fact, Anchor and I was on Anchor's podcast not too long ago. You can check that out on my website. So yeah, looking forward to future episodes of Spiritual Gangsters from the future. Thanks for joining us on episode number 5. Woo!
They're going to happen in the future.
Peace, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you.